speech language pathologist working with the senior community, active in the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce, former president of GROWS, and all around dot connector like my buddy Steve here. Everybody's a dot, and our mission is to connect as many people as possible. So we're delighted to have you here. And I'm going to be dropping off early because I have to host my own program at 3 o'clock, Thursdays at 3. I've given you some information on that, but I'm delighted to be here and anxious to hear what Matt has to share with us today.
Yeah, me too. And yeah, when I scheduled this, I bumped right up against Susan's weekly meeting, and I said, you know what, Susan, why don't you come on and co-host, and we'll give your Thursdays at 3 a plug. So, all right. Well, the one thing is nobody's here to see me or Susan today, as much as we'd like to think so. We're all here to get to know Matt Paxton better, share some of the wisdom that he's got, and hear some of his great stories. So, Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you guys. Good to see you, Susan.
Good to see you, Matt.
How are you?
Joy. We're in the presence of celebrity.
Yeah.
Steve Gurney. I know, man.
Oh, geez, yeah. So, now, and one more housekeeping item, because this comes up at a lot of our meetings. A lot of people will say to me, it's like, why can't I see Susan when Matt is talking, or, vice versa, or what have you? That you control in Zoom in the upper right-hand corner. You'll notice there's a speaker view and there's a gallery view, and play around with that, okay? The other thing that I get, the other comment that I get is that all of these people chatting away in the chat box, it's distracting to me. If you don't want to see that, just click chat, and you can minimize that on your screen. So first off, let's, Matt, it's hard to believe, but not everybody knows you. I love hearing your story of how you kind of got into this business. You want to give us the Cliff Notes version of what got you into sort of into
What
this?
I do. Sure. Is my audio okay? Everybody can hear me good? All right. I've got 3 kids running around just over here, so hopefully they will not good. Well, my name is Matt Paxton. I'm the host of a TV show called Legacy List with Matt Paxton on PBS. It's a show about downsizing, and we follow seniors through their journey, whether they're downsizing or aging in place, or some are still trying to actually go into. Whoop, here we go. Hey, buddy, I'm on a call with 2 people. Okay. Bye-bye. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Getting the
Hey, this is the best part of these types of meetings is that this is truly authentic, Yeah.
This is
legacy in action.
Yeah. I'm at home. I'm at home a lot right now, and this is my youngest son, Temple. He is 6. Okay, you got to go for real. All right. Thank you. Love you too, buddy.
My meeting was great.
Okay, I'm glad your meeting was good. Bye.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome.
Bye-bye. He had his final last day of school meeting today. So. Bye. Okay, sorry. So I am a father of 3, if you can't tell. I have 3 young boys, 6, 8, and 10. But 20 years ago, I started cleaning attics. I was actually an economist for the Federal Reserve. Then I was an economist for Caesars Palace Casinos. And I got into a little bit of trouble. And I came home, back to Richmond, Virginia. I live about 2 hours south of y'all. And I started cleaning old ladies' attics. And then that summer, my dad, my stepdad, and both my grandfathers died in about 18 months. So I went from being the baby, the youngest guy in my family, to the oldest man in my family at 24. And a man is a strong word. I wasn't a man yet. And I had to clean all these houses, and I was grieving, and I was really sad. I was really angry. I was really lost. And then I also had to figure out what to do with all the stuff. Now, this was 20 years ago this year that this happened. And so I had to, I didn't know what to do. And I had to sell things. I had to sell the house. I saw a lot of realtors on here. I had to clean the house. I had to sell all the items in the house. I had to find out what they were worth. I had to collect my dad's bills, people that owed him money. I had to turn off the cable. My God, that was impossible. And keep in mind, there was no Facebook, there was no MySpace, there was nothing. I mean, so this was all on the phone, and I had to wrap up all the bills. I had to do it all. And I was grieving at the same time. And I remember just thinking, this really, really sucks. Like, it was awful. And my grandfather had always said, if something sucks, you should do it as a job because people will pay you to do it. And so here we are 20 years later, I'm still doing it. I just happen to do it on TV now. I've had multiple different companies. I had a company called Clutter Cleaner that was specifically with hoarding. I actually ended up just focusing on hoarding for about 10 years, and I was the host of that TV show Hoarders, if you've never seen that before. I've specialized in the worst of the worst, and we'll talk. I've already seen some pre-questions on hoarding, and I would love to go over those. Wrote a really good book called The Secret Lives of Hoarders, which is kind of a guide to walk people through cleaning up a hoarded home. And then started cleaning up, more downsizing about 10 years ago, knowing that it's just half my clients would call me and say, well, I'm not a hoarder. I just got a lot of stuff. And by the way, not there's anything wrong with being a hoarder. It is what it is. And, the nice thing about doing that TV show Hoarders is we help people kind of get past that stigma. I mean, my first 10 years, people would call, they'd be embarrassed. They wouldn't want to say anything. And now people call, they're like, yeah, I'm a hoarder. No big deal. When can you get here? And it's nice that people are asking for help now. But still half my clients are downsizing. It's just they have 50 years of stuff in a house. And, their kid, now they have grandkids in the house and they raised their kids in that house. And so there's lots of items. If you look at that spectrum of everybody that I've helped, well, I should back up and say, and at the same time, I did 100 and some episodes of Hoarders. And now I'm on my second season of Legacy List, which is downsizing.
Yeah, and I put on the screen where everybody can see and they can go check out the episodes. I think I'll take that down and I'll bring it back up again.
So Hoarders just got one weird thing about this pandemic is all the TV shows are done. No one's been able to film any new shows. And so we're all watching the stuff that was filmed last summer and people are running out of content. So Hoarders just got sold to Netflix and Hulu, which changed my life immensely, not financially. I don't see a penny, but the issue is the awareness is really out there. And millions of people that have never even seen the show Hoarders are now seeing it on Netflix. And so my social media has exploded with people. It's like they're watching season 1. And they'll say, hey, there's a skinny guy that looks like you on Netflix cleaning houses. Mind you, this was 10 years ago. And I had no kids. I've gained about 50 pounds since season 1. And it's crazy because people are like, they're like, this guy looks like you, but he's giving really good advice. I'm like, yeah, that is. But people are asking for help again, which is great. And so whether it be hoarding or downsizing, the same message is across the board. The stuff is holding us back from whatever we're trying to do, whether it be live a healthy life with hoarding or downsizing. You're trying to get out of your house. Any of it, the stuff holds us back, and it's the emotional stories and the emotional attachment, which is on that stuff. So ironically, I've spent 20 years cleaning stuff, and I tell people it has nothing to do with the stuff. It's always about the stories. And Susan, you've been a preacher of that for years. Like, it's about the stories, and Susan tells people how to tell those stories better, right? Steve writes those stories. I tell those stories on TV. What we've learned is, man, if you tell the stories, whether it's you and one other person sitting in a home, or you telling that story on a cell phone to somebody, or whether I'm on stage in front of 10,000 people telling stories, if you tell the stories, you're able to let it go.
Yeah, whenever I've heard you speak, the way that you articulate the emotional attachment to possessions and how that can change our decision making and make things more challenging I know I always joke whenever we're around, I'm like, if I ever need therapy, I'm just going to give you a call up because you've got a very clear insight on that.
I've been in a lot of therapy myself personally. And I tell you, it's funny. We actually help therapy get a little more popular because on Hoarders, we wouldn't clean the house unless there was a therapist present. And, I say this a lot on speeches, like people don't realize hoarding is a recognized mental disorder and it's in the DSM-5 now. And we would offer up to a year of therapy for everyone that participated on that show. And if we didn't, I actually thought it was an unethical show to do. Without offering that therapy, it's not really right to do. Now, we're not there yet with downsizing. People are struggling. We get really mad at our grandparents and we just shove it off as them being old. And we don't realize that they're grieving. That's real grief, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you think of the people we have that are coming through the system right now between 65 and 100. There's 2 generations. You think about what they went through. I mean, you know, I'm 45. I know I look 25, but I'm 45. And a lot of the people, you know, we haven't really had anything major in our lives until right now. This pandemic, I mean, some of us had 9/11, but not everybody. We had the Challenger blowing up, but not everybody. And this has affected us all. So, you know, you look at our grandparents that had the Great Depression. You look at our the things they saw. I mean, my favorite story from my grandma, always before she died, I said, what's the most amazing thing you ever saw? And she goes, oh, I saw a car. She goes, I was in the field picking cotton. And she goes, I saw a car drive by. She goes, that blew my mind. She goes, there was no horses. And then I said, oh, I hadn't really thought about it that way. And then she said, but, you know, the first like indoor bathroom that I saw in Oklahoma City was amazing. She goes, that was inside a building, you know, and that blew her mind. And this is a lady that worked on a farm her whole life, you know. So like you think about what our family members have seen to where they are now. My kids complain about the Wi-Fi, right? Or, you know, Netflix didn't work today. You know, that's their biggest complaint. I am really blown away with the stories that are coming out like right now, because we're all going to be, I think most of us will look back on this time as a time of rest and being home. Yes, there's people passing away. Yes, there's people sick. We're going to see a lot going on with Black Lives Matters. I mean, we have time to bring this in and take it in. And so there's so much going on in the world right now, but a lot of us are going through our houses. And so we're seeing a mass amount of people go through their stuff. And I think it's really, really interesting.
Yeah. So, okay, we know, I mean, you achieved monumental fame and I
Sure.
don't know, fortune,
Sure.
fame with Hoarders.
Gold walls. Yeah.
A lot of people aren't familiar with the new show, and maybe here I'm gonna put back up on the screen. I'm gonna put the website so people can learn more about that. But tell us about the new show. And I know that you're going through casting right now, and then the questions are coming in fast and furious. Matt, talk about the show a little bit, and then we'll get to some of these questions.
Okay.
And
yeah, I mean, I'm here for the Q&A. If I'll be really blunt, on my TV show, we're looking to cast people. It is really a difficult time to film a show. We are working with seniors somewhere in their journey. Somewhere.
Matt, I watched the one that you did up by Edison's area in New York.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a fabulous program.
Yeah. So the show, we'll highlight that one. So this show is us about just helping a family that family was selling a home that they'd been in for over 100 years. The grandparents had been in it, the mother had been in it, and now the daughter lived in Manhattan, and she was like, I don't really need this big house. But she loved growing up there. And so it was a generational thing where, I mean, it had been over 100 years the family had lived there, and a lot of great things had happened. But they just didn't need it, and they wanted less stuff. And so the show follows the multiple generations. And what a legacy list is this is I actually started a company many years ago called Legacy Navigator. It was bought by a company I won't mention, and they bought most of the downsizing companies in your region. I left that company and to do this show. But when I was helping seniors in the houses, I did a thing called Legacy List. It would be, hey, what are the 4 or 5 items you got to have before we move, before we do anything? What are the 4 or 5 items that mean the most? And they would write a list. And some of them they could find, some they couldn't. And so I pitched this show to PBS. I said, look, there's a lot of great stories, but it's not about how much the item is financially worth. The worth that I want to know about is the emotional worth. What's the value? What's the story? And they'll say, oh, well, this is my grandpa found this. Great. Tell me about your grandpa. I don't care what it's worth. We find things that are financially valuable all the time. But I knew 2 years ago, really 3 years ago when I came up with the show, I knew that we were going to be coming up to an election year this year. I knew that negativity was higher than ever. And I'd say, we're going to need positive stories. And we're going to want to laugh and going to want to cry. And so Legacy List is a vehicle to tell those great stories. That's it. So I'm looking for families, not rich, not wealthy. If they are, fine. But I want stories. I want history. We stumbled upon history in these shows. We didn't realize. I mean, the show that Susan's talking about, this family said, hey, we think our great-grandfather knew Edison. We're pretty sure. Now, we're on public television now, and so that really helps us. We're able to get a lot of researchers from genealogy companies, from history, from all types of libraries. Everybody supports us. And we have a pretty good research team led by a kid from Harvard. This kid's he's an intern. He's from Harvard. He's brilliant. But we were able to find, not only did we find out that this guy knew Edison, we found out that he was a lawyer that helped start the U.S. Patent Attorney's Office. And he had bought Scientific American magazine with a friend. And, they built that magazine just so they could sell more patents. And we found all these letters and telegrams from Thomas Edison in the attic asking this lady's great-grandfather to come see his new invention, the light bulb. Our research team got in touch with the Edison people at the museum down the street, and they're like, we have the return letters that you're referring to. They had them in their catalogs, in their archives. So we were able to put together the message, which was basically this guy was like, hey, Edison was like, hey, come check out this thing. It's called 7 Miles of Lights. And the guys that run Scientific American, they're like, nah, we're good. And then he asked them like 6 times, and finally the 6th time, they said, all right, we'll come down. And we had the train ticket, everything. And it was all in the attic. And we were able to connect the whole story. And then finally he saw it. And then the next week in Scientific American was an article about this little invention called the light bulb. And it was the 5th most interesting thing he had seen that week. And this was all in the attic, man. I mean, that's an extreme amount of history. I will say in the region that we're in, basically from, Maryland to Richmond, there is an immense amount of history, some good, some bad. I'll tell you, we're a little nervous. I'm filming in 2 weeks. Mind you, I'm calling you from Richmond, Virginia. That's the old Richmond skyline right there behind us. We've got monuments and statues coming down as we speak right now because of the world we're in right now. Side note, they need to come down. But we are also cleaning out someone from the Lee family in one of their mansions next month. And so we're going to have that conversation. And what I love about it is public television, PBS, allows us to have that real conversation. If we were on any other network, we'd have to sell commercials, and we wouldn't be able to have true, real conversations about the items we are finding in people's attics. Some great, some not. But public television allows us to have those conversations. And what we found is families want to talk. We've got grandparents and we've got grandkids that want to have that conversation. So we're actually really excited about season 2. We need just people. Again, not wealthy, not rich. As long as they got stories, I believe we can film this show in any house. I really believe that.
Yeah, and
everybody's got a story.
What I like about the show is that Antiques Roadshow is all about the money. It's sort of like they analyze an item, and it's sort of like, oh, I thought it was worth more, and then the person kind of slumps away. And I think what you're doing is that, hey, yeah, sometimes there's monetary value, but it's family value. It's the meaning of it, and it's the history that could be, the Edison light bulb, but it's the family history, and those stories are very important.
Yeah, hey, I'm seeing a lot of comments, and I love people have seen the show, and a lot of people on this call today are in the industry.
You want to get to some questions?
Yeah, I would just say, let me say this real quick. I mean, all of us, we make our money in this industry, right? And so we get focused on the money side of it. I'm going to tell you now more than ever, the stories is what we need. So it'd be great if somebody could help me cast this show. But if all you take from this message today is sit down with your clients and hear the stories, make sure your employees, especially more than ever, we're going back into homes very, very carefully. Like, ease into it, man. Hear the stories. Talk. Listen, I mean, I promise you, your brand will improve the more time. Your profitability may not the next 6 months, but let's be honest, we're happy to be back in the houses, right? Mm-hmm. Very slowly. But let's just hear those stories and take that time, and it creates a connection with the clients. And I'm going to be honest, it's just flat interesting. I mean, I'm blown away. I am truly now the luckiest man alive. I get paid to sit down with people's grandparents and visit. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do questions.
All right. Well, okay. So first off, everybody, you can ask questions two ways. Use the Q&A or raise your hand and we'll put you on. And but Heidi Garvis put a question in chat, and yeah, can you really empty a house in 2 days? She asks.
So Heidi, you've been in the industry. Hi, by the way. It is not. It's not something I really want to do. That lady. It's funny. People go, "Was that just for TV?" Man, I wish that was just for TV. That lady had promised me and promised me and promised me that her family was going to help. So I only paid for movers to come. I did not come for packers. And people sometimes forget that there's a difference between packing and moving. So she swore to me for 2 months that she had, her family was going to pack it up. We were good. And I verified and verified and verified. Her realtor is the one that brought us in. And of course, the morning before we get there to shoot, I mean, the movers were coming at 8 a.m. the next morning. I get there and she's like, yeah, we didn't get to packing. She just didn't get to it. So we had to rally 20 guys and women. We had to get 20 people to get together. And so we packed her up the entire night, all the way through. Was that ideal? No, it was awful. I wish we hadn't had that. I get that question all the time. Like, is that real? Yeah, unfortunately it was. We're going to try to feature less of those time constraints. There's no need. I've been on cable for 10 years, which drama is what makes TV happen. You don't need that on public television. We're able to just tell the stories, and that's enough. And so it's been really nice to just very casually tell these family stories.
So I'm going to start going down the questions here. Okay. How do pandemic restrictions affect the ability to donate goods? Most charitable organizations are not accepting goods.
Okay, I can see these. I'm reading them as we're there.
Okay.
I got to be honest. This is a tough one. In some localities they are accepting donations, but let's go with the premise of most of them are not. First and foremost, call, find out. Right. I have been working with Goodwill a bit this year. I've never partnered with Goodwill. If you know me, I've not really been a big fan of theirs. We've started to work together just because they lead the national conversation on this. And I got to admit, they've turned me a little bit. I'm a little more open to their mission now. I really understand it. The irony in Goodwill is they're not there for the stuff, just like me. They're there for the training. The stuff is just a means to the end for Goodwill. They use that for their mission, which is to train people and give people jobs and a lot of training. It's people that would no longer get jobs anywhere else. So more than anyone, they want to get these items out of your house and sold because that's what pays for their business and for their employees to work. So they're trying hard. I would say there's the cleanliness side of it, the actual sanitization of these items is not that hard. They can clean an entire warehouse, about 10,000 square feet in about an hour. If you work with Service Master or Serve Pro, there's probably many people on this. It's a difficult sanitization. You just got to have it all in one place. They're unable to put their labor to work yet. If you're in Virginia, I don't know about Maryland or DC. I mean, y'all are in that area that each law is different. And so make sure you know which state you're going to and you make sure you know which the laws are. But just kind of hold tight. It's coming. I mean, everyone hopefully will be accepting donations by end of summer. We're overwhelming the locations, the dump locations. I can tell you that. Try not to throw much away. If you have any space, use it for sorting. Or you just need to kind of chill. Just wait a little bit longer. If you're selling the items, there's lots of levels and I saw for sales on here. I saw a couple in here. There's people that know more about this than I do. And they're probably answering in the comments, but I will tell you, if it's one item at a time, don't be afraid of Facebook Marketplace locally. Don't be afraid of Free Cycle. Don't be afraid of some of these websites. Facebook has some great groups where it's Buy Nothing. I just partnered with a new group called Buy Nothing Richmond. And man, you give it away. I think we're learning now money's not as important unless it is. If it is, if $1 matters, then man, wait. You had it for 10 years, you can wait a few more weeks. Right? If the dollar really doesn't matter, then change that value to giving away. What value do you get you know, if you give it away to someone that really needs it, that's probably more valuable to you than actually $20. Right?
Yep.
I just gave away our crib. I finally took away my 6-year-old's crib. It's been up in his room 4 years too long. And I tried to sell it for $500. It's a nice crib. I finally gave it to somebody yesterday because it was a lady down the street that couldn't afford a crib.
Yep.
That's much better than $100. So don't be afraid of donation right now, but hang tight. Call your local charities. If you know me, I'm a big believer in immediate use. Maybe not someone that needs it and that is going to buy it, or put it on a shelf, but someone that's going to use it tomorrow. So I love Dress for Success. I love. There's a technology, Tech for Troops is one that I really love. They give all the old TVs you can't use. They give them to them for recycling. I would say get used to the fact that I do not think pickups are going to happen anytime soon. I don't think most people are not going to come pick up your. So AmVets, I haven't spoken with them. They haven't even going to get back to me. But the people that normally pick it up from you, say that again.
The free pickups.
Yeah, I think your free pickup is probably, you need to get rid of that in your head. You're either going to have to take it or not. One tip that I really love, if you do drive, put a cardboard box in your trunk. And when you have something to donate it, put an empty cardboard box in your trunk, or put the items in that box, and then you drive it to the location, and somebody will pick up that box for you at the location. So you're not picking it up. If you put that box in your utility room or your living room or somewhere and you fill it, you ain't ever going to pick it up. It's just going to sit there, and then it's going to overflow, and it becomes a trip hazard. So I think just the little things like putting it in your house,
you get it out of your house because it's in your trunk.
Yeah.
You're halfway there.
It's not the volume that we want, but we're not picking it up ourselves. It's not the strenuous part of it.
Yeah.
Clothes.
Right.
This is a great time. Pictures and clothes. Pictures. I'm going to give you my tips on pictures really, really quick, just because if we're sitting around and we have time, people they freak out about. That's actually the number one question I get across the board is pictures. We're going to have a whole episode about pictures this year, believe it or not.
Hey, Matt. Yeah. Just in this for the audience. Somebody in chat just mentioned that AmVets did pick up in Rockville, Maryland today.
Okay, wow.
Their neighbors had some stuff out.
Great. Okay, so call AmVets. Call. You got the time. Pick up the phone and call. You guys are in a tricky region where Maryland versus Virginia, I can see the state across the river, but it might be a different pickup. So just get on the phone and call. But it is coming soon.
And don't forget a wider circle, too. They may be picking up.
A wider circle. Are we putting these resources in the chat, people? If you know,
yeah.
It's going to be a great resource to have them.
But here, let's.
Go to the next question. I'll do pictures. If we have time for pictures.
I got Dan Sanders. He's raised his hand. Daniel
Okay.
Sanders has raised his hand. So, Daniel, you have a question or you want to share something?
Yeah, hey, good to see you again, Matt. It's Daniel Sanders with For Sales. So
Hey, there you are. I knew I saw your name up there.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on with regards to what to do with these smaller quantities, because any kind of professional reseller like what we do and a few of the other people that are on, you got to have a certain volume, value, and variety of stuff to work with, or there's not enough meat on the bone to make it financially successful for the client. The Facebook Marketplace tip, that one, we've been playing with that and giving people advice and seeing how it pays out, like looping back and seeing how it worked for them. If you've got items that the typical 35 to 45-year-old mother of children would want, that is 100% the right place to take the onesie twosie or the queen bed that you no longer want, because it falls into that bracket. It's that's the great environment. These neighborhood
Brown furniture is not selling anywhere.
Oh no, God no, nowhere. And these neighborhood free groups, they're all targeted at the millennials. You want to know how to give stuff to millennials? Go to those neighborhood free groups, because they're all struggling for employment. Well, not all, but a good number are struggling for employment. But I wanted to thank you because you were spot on.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
If they have a whole house, should they wait until the pandemic is over, or should they be calling now?
They should be calling now. We actually didn't miss a beat. I mean, we did close down our resale operations in compliance with all the government operations, but we're running our first live auction on the 17th, and we open our first on-site estate sale on the 19th again. And that's the first time in over 90 days that we'll be revenue generating.
Yeah, I would argue now more than ever is the right time to call whatever
Oh,
group.
hell yeah. We're booking July already.
Call now because you do have the time to plan. It might get your price down a little more because you're doing more of the work yourself, but you're still going to have the right time that your items deserve. So
and we're coming out of this with a backlog. We're coming out of this with a backlog, Matt. That's great advice.
I totally believe it.
What's the number one hidey hole place that you recommend looking for that family valuable that's been tucked away and lost from sight?
That's a good question.
I got my favorites. I want to know what yours are.
Number one place I look. I gotta be honest. You know what I'm really loving right now is the junk drawer and the little junk drawer in the kitchen. I love the little tchotchkes that we find and the pictures that we find. And then I'm really big on. And I live in the South. I'm 2 hours below y'all. The guest room closet is a place where things go to die. And I'm telling you, you find some cool stuff in there. I don't like starting in the attic or the garage. It's like running a marathon on the first day.
Yeah.
You really got to ease into it. So I like a drawer or like the old, like down here it was pie safes. We had pie safes and we had the old refrigerator indoor, the old tin refrigerators, just old brown furniture that becomes something that holds things.
I like the guest room.
Guest rooms.
I'm a big fan of the guest room because it's relatively unemotional.
And hopefully you have no guests staying, and so you have the bed space to spread it out.
Right. And how often do you find financial statements in the drawers in the guest bedroom? So
now's a great time to shred. Now's a really good time to shred, like, for 20 minutes a night.
Yeah.
But I'm pushing pictures. I really like going through your pictures right now. They just overwhelm us, and they're the last thing we want. If there's any senior living community people online right now, I mean, how many times have you had someone say, "I'm ready to move in as soon as I go through my pictures," and they've been on the wait list for 5 years? Doubles, get rid of your doubles. Get rid of your landscapes, the ones that are just like you don't even know what beach it is. You don't know if it's Myrtle Beach or Bethesda, or Rehoboth. Yeah. And then I'm really big on if you don't know anyone if you don't know the name of anybody in the picture, and you'd be surprised how many pictures we keep. We're like, well, I think that's somebody important. They look like me. I'm like, great. You're the oldest lady in the family. Do you know the name of it? No, I don't. Okay, well then you can get rid of some of those. But the doubles alone, think about it. The 1 hour photo and the Fox photo, and it was People's Drug back then, not CVS. We all had doubles of everything. Just get rid of the doubles. It's going to take your pictures down by, half.
Yep. Hey, great. Thanks, Daniel. Great. Somebody wants you to expand on and I bet you got a good story to tell on this one. Is that you said if you tell the story, then you're able to let things go. So why and how does that work?
Okay, so it's about the stories, and here's the problem: when you tell a story, there has to be someone willing to listen. Telling a story to the brick wall is not that exciting.
Whoops.
I was doing Zoom calls, but I really like to get family calls occasionally and have grandma once a week tell that story. We've started with my mom and my grandkids, my kids and my mother. She's been coming over once a week and telling us stories of where she's traveled around the world. My mom's young, she's 72, but she's not that young. And so my kids are, and they want to hear these stories. And so we pulled out a map, we put a map on the wall, and my mom says, "Hey, I went to Antwerp." They had to find Antwerp, right? And then my mom talked about this amazing meal she had there. And they're like, "You ate snails? What?" Right? And then my mom tells these stories. And it's a nice way to, instead of watching TV, we're talking for an hour at night. But my boys are taking notes. And I'll tell you one thing. This is something I learned this year. I got all my kids' notepads. I got them off their laptops, and they're writing notes, and they go back and research it later. That's really helped a lot. This is for young kids. But get your mom or your dad talking, and it's about 20 minutes, and just about their experiences. Where were they during the war? What was their first car? Is my favorite question. I ask that every day now to somebody. Hey, man, what was your first car? What was your first job? What's the coolest?
Matt, that might be your next show.
I would love that. Man, that's an easy show. My God. what's your first car? And I had a guy this week. I was like, hey, man, he wouldn't talk. I was cashing him for the show. Uninterested as could be. I said, what was your first car? He goes, 51 Bel Air. And he got excited and said, well, how'd you get it? And he goes, I shined shoes from 8 to 18. And he shined shoes in California during World War II. I was like, great. Where were you? And so he starts to tell me about where he was stationed. I was like, what was California like in the 40s? And he's like, a little different, but not actually, and he starts to tell all these stories. And so the person asking, how does this work? You've got to initiate the questions and just get curious. If you watch my new show, All I Am is Curious. I actually never took a history class. I was in Virginia in the 80s. We somehow didn't teach history. I don't know how. I got out of that. I can tell you how cigarettes were made, but I don't know much about the history side of it. It's crazy. But I really have just gotten curious and excited, and that has passed on to my kids. And they're now, my favorite story is we had a lady back when I worked at Legacy Navigator. We had a lady that I found an old picture, and it was a roller coaster. And I said, well, where's this roller coaster? She goes, oh, that's Forest Hill Park. It's right up the street. And it was called the Whoop-De-Doo. And we were able to do some research. And this park that we all mountain bike at, it's the main park of the city. Turns out there was a wooden roller coaster there right after the Depression. And half the old ladies in my town, that's where they met their husbands. Half of them met at a bar. The other half met them at called the Tantilla Gardens, where they go dancing. And the other half met them at this roller coaster. And it was right. Both of them were very near where the train would come after World War II. And these guys would get off the train, and these girls would sit and talk to the guys. And so you just get these stories told. Now, here's what we're not talking about. Should you be documenting these stories? Yes. Do you need a fancy camera? No. Do you have a cell phone? Probably so. Just video, man. Just video or audio record it and get those stories down. Because what happens is, and I've done many speeches about this, nobody wants your stuff. The next group of kids, the millennials, they don't want your big furniture. They don't want all the stuff. But when they hear their stories, sometimes that changes.
Yeah, and that actually ties in with Kathy Turner's question/comment. She says, my parents are in the midst of downsizing. It's difficult because they have things they want to pass down to their 3 children and their grandkids. Us kids appreciate some things because they have meaning to us, but look at things as stuff that we just don't need. Is that there's a generation that doesn't necessarily want what the other generation is giving.
I'm working on a book with AARP right now about this exact topic, right? How to communicate between the 2 generations. Because what we found is grandma and grandpa here, they don't want any of my stuff. And all we're saying is, no, dude, I don't want that wood sofa that's been in there for 50 years. It's like a green velvet in a room we don't go into, right? And it's got that gold piping, right? Communication is the issue on all these questions. How do you communicate it? You don't say, I don't want your stuff, Grandma. You say, God, I love you, Grandma. I just don't need that one specific couch. I have 2. Then when you got married to Grandpa, tell me about that apartment. What did I just do there? I flipped it. I said, Grandma, tell me your story, right? And so instead of her hearing my kids don't love me, which is what she hears, you now talk for 20 minutes. And then you find out, you're going to end up finding out fur coats is one of my favorite topics. Fur coats, the millennials hate the fur coats, right? And then they find pictures of grandma wearing it when she's really hot and really cool. And she's got this incredible story. And then all of a sudden, this girl that's like protesting fur is like, it's a nice jacket. I might want to keep it, right? They start home because the stories is what makes it valuable. And I sound like a broken record, but it's stories, 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 stories. If you hear them and you have love for that person, the few items change. Now we have to change the expectation of grandma. Grandma, you got to remember, a lot of them came over as immigrants. They came with nothing. They worked hard. They accumulated all this stuff, and we don't want it all. And is that okay that we don't want it all? Yeah, that's okay. They worked hard so that you could say no. But there's a nice way to say no. You can say, I love you. I appreciate it. I do want X, Y, and Z. I don't need it all because I don't have space. And
Yep.
Grandma, you taught me to be an independent, badass woman, and it's okay for me to say no to you because of what you did. Now, is that a little pandering? Yes. But is it effective? Highly effective.
Hey, I know, you've sort of closed the chapter of Hoarders, but this is a pretty good question. Hoarding is a difficult disorder to treat. Do you have a success story that is in
Okay.
the back of your mind?
Yeah, I see it. So I'm still helping a lot of people with hoarding. In fact, we're going to start a Facebook Live once a month on hoarding just because it's not going away. People need the help. We do have success stories. Let's go on the rate first. Therapy, 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 therapy. Hoarding is caused by trauma. Something bad has happened to you, and it causes you to look for a happiness and self-worth in stuff. No different. If you know my whole background, I had a gambling addiction. I lost everything when I was 24. Everything. Owed a bookie $40,000. Steve, I think you've heard the full story. I got into a lot of trouble, and it was because I was gambling. Well, it wasn't because I was looking for my happiness and self-worth. For some reason, my brain chose gambling. Could have chosen drugs. Could have chosen alcohol. Right now, my addiction is paddleboarding. Steve and I just found out we share that love. Right? I paddleboard every day. That's where I find my happiness and self-worth. It's a positive place. For our hoarders, they found it in a negative place, stuff. And the more stuff they have, the better it makes them feel. Right? So you got to deal with that therapy somehow. You got to deal with that trauma. And so they got to go to therapy. There's no point in cleaning a house if they're not going to get the trauma dealt with. It's divorce, it's abuse, it's death. That's probably 90% of it. Right? I had one lady, I think you guys heard the story, but I had a lady that she lost her husband and her son in Katrina. Like, she literally watched them get washed away. And so she held on to everything of her sons. And she said to me, she said, Matt, the hard thing is, I don't know if they died or if they survived and they chose not to contact me. Think about that. The trauma of not knowing if your son and husband made it or not. So she hoarded a lot of stuff to find happiness. Makes sense to me, right? They got to go to therapy. Our success rate, the methods that I've involved cleaning, we are 60% successful if the person goes to therapy. If they don't go to therapy, 100% of the time they relapse. Absolutely, 100% of the time. Right? And I'm going to take that a little further. Whether you're downsizing and grandma's going back into senior living or you're hoarding, either way, you got to keep busy. Right? And by the way, grandma hoarding the creamer and the ketchup packets at senior, that's not hoarding. That's control. She's angry and she wants control of something, and so she's going to choose that.
Huh. Interesting.
That's a big, don't mess with me.
Yeah. I want to jump to this question because it's from an APS, Adult Protective Services investigator, and receiving reports from seniors who are hoarders. It's a struggle to assist when somebody has limited resources or funds. Do you have any suggestions on how to help a hoarder who might be on limited funds?
So most of the hoarders are on limited funds. I will say, so the DC metro area, ironically, is the #1 place for hoarding in the country. It's DC, Boston, and San Francisco. Those are the top 3. What do those 3 things have in common? High income, high education, right? So I will say I've been cleaning hoarded houses in the DC metro Maryland area for almost 20 years now. And they have more availability than you think. No one has ever said to me, yeah, I got a ton of money. Let's nip this in the bud early. Right? So let's, and a lot of them have spent their money on the stuff. There are no funds available. I mean, and especially now, we're the lowest person on the totem pole. There's not going to be a group of people that just say, hey, here's some money. Abilities Network in Maryland occasionally has some funds. They're a great group. Abilities Network is really, they've done a really good job. I've trained a lot of their people. They're a good group. But I think volunteerism is going to be the solution to this. A lot of churches have reached out to us. Right now, there's not a solution. I started to work with AmeriCorps. They have over 100,000 seniors that wanted to volunteer pre-COVID. Churches, I think, is the solution. I've reached out to a few folks. I don't have the ability to lead this. I'd love to offer my training. If anybody here is bored and has time, I'd love to create a national training volunteer base. I think faith services are going to be where that solution is going to be. But right now it doesn't exist. And there has to be a non-judgmental, trained volunteer force that's safe. By the way, trying to get a bunch of N95 masks right now ain't going to happen, right? We got to find a way for it to be safe. They got to be educated, and they can't be judgmental. But if we could treat that, it's a really good mission. I mean, 5% of the country struggles with hoarding, and a lot of research will argue that we're going to see an increase in that post-COVID.
Hey, Barbara Sullivan from the Village to Village Network asked the million.
Hello, Barbara.
Yeah. No, I talked to her the other day, and she was excited to be on here. The million-dollar question that we're all asking: do you think more seniors are staying at home now versus moving to senior communities after COVID?
All right, that is a million-dollar question. I'm seeing both. My gut and my vision tells me more are going to stay home, but a lot of people are still moving. I mean, we're getting a lot of calls. I know a lot of people wanting help. I think they want to be communicated to better. They want to know what the safety protocols are. A lot of people are very nervous that there's going to be this round 2, and they're going to be isolated back. They're going to be in quarantine in a community. And I don't think people want that. But I know a lot of people are talking about a spring move-in.
Yeah.
A lot of people. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was on the phone with a woman today, and she was bouncing she's already got her move-in date at a community. Yeah. And, she was just like, look, I'm going to be isolated in my home, or I'm going to be isolated in a community where I have some amenities. And so it's very, very much a personal decision.
Yeah, let's use this as a chance to mention Village to Village. Village to Village is a really strong network where it allows seniors to stay at home. And so, I would hope things like Village to Village are going to increase membership. I am seeing more people online offering help. I see all the time my neighbors saying, hey, I'm running to Costco. Who needs something?
No, I think because we're all getting, we all got a taste with what it's like to be isolated.
I think we are seeing more volunteering. I think we're seeing more community. I think we are going to see this is from the people that are in the business. I know we have a lot of people that are not business. I do think I was on a senior living foresight call a couple weeks ago. My belief is that the senior living communities, once they get their feet back under them, they're going to end up buying all of us. I think all the services are going to be, more people are going to stay at home longer. I do believe that, but you're still going to go to one place for your services. So I think we'll see home health care get rolled up. I think we'll see downsizing. I think all the people that you partner with now to get person through downsizing, I believe they're eventually going to be under one balance sheet.
Good
More
point.
people still have to do it. We just need to know that it's safe.
Hey, it's about eight minutes to 3, and I want to make sure that we address this. We can go a little bit over, guys, but if you need to jump off at,
I can go over. Yeah.
But a couple of questions on the show and the casting, and what is the criteria, or is there any?
Good question. So the only criteria on the show is they need to be thinking about downsizing. They need to be somewhere on that journey. Somewhere on the journey. Doesn't mean you have to be moving tomorrow. A lot of people were thinking about moving, and now they're saying, I'm going to pause a little bit. But you know what the number one issue on downside? Well, actually, number one is what I do with the pictures. Number two is how do I get started? They just don't know how to get started. And so I think that's okay. Where do I get started is a topic for the show. We've got community reaching out to us, which is fine. Anybody, because if it's an issue that your client has, it's probably an issue that millions of people have, and we need to feature it. And PBS has really given me pretty carte blanche to do what I want. They're just saying, make sure it's an honest story. We would love as much diversity as possible. We really need more diversity. A bunch of rich white people is not a great show, to be honest. So the wealthier the family, we found they care more about the stuff. The less wealthy, the more the human stories are. And so I'm leaning towards, average, regular. I like the interesting stories myself. But if you got that really, just, I hate this word crazy, it's my least favorite word, but if you got that real character that, whether it's your grandma or a friend or a client that's been on your wait list for 10 years and they're just a handful, but you love them to death, they're usually really good. They're usually really good. And I will tell you, what I saw last season, we didn't know going into it. Pretty much every family, there's always one really strong female that held the family together. And they're usually the people that I want on the dad. We didn't, of all the families we helped last season, it was all 100% of the time was a strong female that ended up being the one that managed everything and did everything. And so they end up being the person telling the story. I like tragedy and triumph. I am casting someone. We've got somebody that was in the encampments, the Asian encampments in California. I'm trying to cast somebody right now from, there's a few survivors left from the Holocaust. I mean, these are real people that went through true hardship. And I think we can all learn from them. So that's a bonus if we have that. But I got one lady that's just crazy and I love her. And she's going to be really good on TV.
Awesome. Susan, I know you got to jump over.
Let me answer this real quick. What are we doing to help them? We're telling their story, and we are going to help. We put money towards the downsizing, but we pay the actual we pay the business that's helping them. We don't just give them cash.
All right. Susan, I know you got to jump over to Thursdays at 3. You shared the link with. You shared.
I do. I've got the link in there, but I want to say that I've got about 3 new programs for you, Matt. Just let me know who you want me to lobby. I think Get Curious is wonderful with regard to children. I like the concept of the religious and the faith-based. You got all kinds of stuff going on there. You just need to live long enough.
If you want to run with it, I'd love to advise. My plate is full. I'm taking on no new projects the next year. That's my promise to my kids. Right. I'm going to call you, Susan. So good to see you. Susan's got to have the last word for her. What do you want people to know after hearing all this?
Listen to Matt. You're wonderful. And thank you, Steve. It's all about the dots. Everybody connect. It's all about the dots.
All right. And
be kind.
Thanks, Susan. We got more questions and Matt's staying on. But
bye, everyone.
We'll join you in a bit there, Susan. Okay. What about, do you have a favorite junk clean out company?
That's a loaded question. There's a lot of really good companies up here.
Or maybe if you don't want to share a specific company, what is the question that Matt Paxton would ask if he's calling some of these guys?
I want to know what they're doing with the donated items. They should be able to answer that. Some of them monetize it, some of them donate it. Just want to know. I'd want to know what their safety protocols are. Are they just doing curbside pickup or not? What's the red company up there? Red and white. Red and white logo.
123.
123 is really good. Their crew is awesome. I've worked with them a lot up there. 123 is really, really good.
And I would say to the attendee, I'd say to the attendees, type in to the chat if you've got companies you've used.
800 Got Junk, College Hunks, they're all good up there, to be honest. 123 is a NAPO partner. I mean, if you work with NASM and you work with NAPO, you're not going to get by being bad. I'll tell you that right now. A good NASM member. I mean, obviously I'm biased. I'm a NASM member. I work with, if you got a whole house, man, you need to reach out to them. Reach out to a professional.
And just so everybody on the call might not be familiar with NASM, it's the National Association of Senior Move Managers. And this is a relatively new profession that didn't exist, 15, 20 years ago. And it's really made a huge change in people tackling moving and downsizing. And that,
someone said junk luggers is pretty good nationally. I've worked with them a lot in different regions as well.
Okay, yeah. 123 junk luggers. Junk King, Junk in the Trunk. Boy, these are some great names, aren't they?
And look, bigger doesn't necessarily mean better. Sometimes they got one truck and the service might be what you need. I mean, just call around. Don't be afraid.
Yep.
Someone just posted about NAPO, National Association of Professional Organizers, napo.net. Great group, really good group. Sometimes people think they need to like clean everything out, and they really just need help decluttering and organizing. And a lot of NAPO members are also NASM members, so don't be afraid to go to both NAPO and NASM.
Yeah, and then somebody, Waldo is asking, are there any home organizing declutter companies on the Eastern Shore? Folks, you guys know the answers in the audience, so throw that into chat and help out Waldo. Anna Novak says, I meet a lot of folks who say they want to downsize in a year or more. What's your advice on the types of jobs they should tackle first when they're starting out?
First of all, Anna, I owe you a phone call. I know I do. Thank you.
Hey, this is how she tracked you down.
I know. Oh, Anne's thorough. I know. She'll get me. I think, it's never too early to start. I really like a plan. I mean, here's the part nobody wants to discuss. You got to know where you're going. And people are like, I want to downsize. I'm ready to sell my house. Great. Where are you moving to? I have no idea. Well, how do you know what you're going to take? How do you know how much money you need? You really got to address where you're going to. And so I think now more than ever, you really need to start looking. There's going to be some deals. There's going to be some move-in deals. I know a lot of communities have reached out to me, and their marketing department is actually offering to pay for some of the downsizing costs. And they'll bring the right downsized person in, or they'll bring the right realtor in. So don't be afraid to call the right realtor. Novak's a great example of a realtor that's getting involved in SRES. They're getting involved in NASM. They're starting to bring all the pieces together. Right? I mean, a lot of us on this call are starting to do more than just one thing, and that's okay because we see people want to be a one-stop shop. Just get on the phone and call someone you trust, whether it be someone from church, someone from the community told you about, but just start, and you need to figure out, I mean, if your house is messy, there was someone that sent a pre-question in, we're saying they had the garage and the attic were still full, the rest of the house was good. They were being very nice in how they asked that question because clearly they were protecting one family member. I've read these emails long enough to know what's going on there. Look, the garage needs to be clean. I'm going to be really blunt with you. You're going to have a hard time selling the house if the garage isn't clean. The attic, you can get away with the attic not being perfect. If you've got that one room that's horrible, you need to address it. And now is the time to do it.
And I like your advice. In the past, you've always said, don't feel like you got to take on the whole room. Take one drawer at a time.
Oh, dude, I'm 10 minutes a night. I'm bare bones. I mean, clean 10 minutes a night. You 1 foot by 1 foot. Compare this to working out. Like, I'm the heaviest I've ever been, ever, physically. And I'm starting to eat a little better. All right. I'm starting to walk 10, 20 minutes. That's me doing one drawer at a time. I'm not going to clean the whole attic out in a weekend. Steve, you've seen me do this in classes all the time. I ask the whole audience, I say, how long have you lived in your house? 5 years, a few people. 10 years, a few more people. And I just keep, and you get to 40, some of us have lived in these houses 40, 50 years. So remember, it took you 50 years to fill the house. You're not going to clean it in an afternoon. It's going to take some time. Salacious plug here. If you submit this client or you submit yourself for my show, you're going to get me and my team and whatever experts we bring in to help you clean. That's a great way to get started, dude.
That's what I was going to say. Hey, and on that, because there's 2 or 3 questions, the TV show, is there a specific geographic area or is the whole country?
We're looking at the whole country right now.
Okay.
I would love to be between PA and Atlanta, but I'll go anywhere for a good story.
Great. And then Bruce Goodman, we will get you Matt's contact info so that you can reach out to him.
Hey, I think my intern's on here. Anna, put our website and put my email, paxtoniscool@gmail.com.
Great. And then when I send the follow-up out, I'll get it out.
There you go.
Judy Tiger, seems like some diverse historians and genealogists may be a good lead for families. Yeah, boy, that is.
Let me tell you something. I have just been turned on to the genealogy field. I went to a conference called Roots Tech. If you've never heard of it, it's a massive conference, and it's all run by Ancestry.com and MyHeritage. It's It's in Salt Lake City. The Mormon Church owns this entire industry, and they're truly devoted to getting people to learn more about their family history. Most of my clients, that's their next thing they want to do. They want to learn about their family history. In fact, we just did if you go on my YouTube page or go on any of my social medias, which Anna just promoted, I did an hour-long intro to genealogy. We've had a lot of groups from that community that's helping us cast the show. They've been amazing, and they're really detailed, really thorough, and it's fascinating. They actually, on the Zoom class, the Facebook Live I did with Legacy Tree genealogist, I gave them a picture and my grandfather's name, and that's it. And they found out a bunch of information on my family. It blew me away, and it's really made me get excited about it. That's probably, from a business perspective, I think that's there's a ton of opportunity in genealogy because so many of us really want to learn more.
Oh, and it's really interesting. I did the Mayflower thing, and it was fascinating. Marianne Griffin has a question. Marianne, you had your hand raised. Let's see here. And then while we're waiting for her to get on, as an APS worker, I see a lot of clients overwhelmed by paperwork, old bills, statements, junk mail. Any suggestions for helping seniors let go of the piles of paperwork?
Yes, and APS, thank you for all that you do. It is probably the most underappreciated job because everybody blames APS, and there's no funding for APS. There never was, and it'll be even less now. So thank you for what you do. I'll say this. If you owe somebody money, they're going to find you. Like, it is what it is. And the paper is really holding us back. I'm really about shredding these days. You need to sort through it fast. Go through it fast and look, because we have many times found a bunch of stocks in estates where people, you're going through your mom's mail and she died, and you find stacks of U.S. savings bonds. Keep in mind where you are, guys. A lot of people received U.S. savings bonds with their checks, with every paycheck, physical bonds. And so DC, basically Fredericksburg to Bethesda, we always search every single drawer. We go through every piece of paper and we shake every book because we find thousands of dollars in matured bonds, whether it be stocks, savings bonds. I had one lady, she goes, "Oh, those are all expired." I said, "No, ma'am, those are matured." And she and her mom had been separated. They didn't talk. They didn't do anything. And she thought her mom didn't like her. And when we cleaned out her mom's house, it was in downtown in Southwest DC, we found it was like 10 grand, which was like $1 million to this lady. And the savings bonds were actually in the daughter's name, in the lady that hired us. So she thought her mom didn't even like her. And here we are. We said, not only did your mom like you, she specifically saved this money for you your entire life. And it changed her life. It was really a special moment. So go through the paperwork, but if in doubt, shred it. Taxes is 7 years. A lawsuit, if you're being sued, it's 10 years. So 7 for taxes, 10 for lawsuits, accounting, 7. And then if it's a trust or a will, you need to keep it forever.
Great. I think we got Marianne on now. Marianne?
Hi, Steve. Just a question. All the anachronisms that we've heard on this call, is there a place where we could go, sort of a central location, to find out what all of those organizations are?
You know what? I'll try to, when I send a follow-up email to everybody who registered, I'll go through and not only spell out the acronyms, but I'll add the websites. I know that can be somewhat confusing, so thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Marianne, thank you. I just wrote down, I'm going to write that as 2 pages in my new book. I'm going to put all that.
Oh,
all the way.
Hey,
Great,
and
thanks.
Matt, good on the last question there. What is the name of the book you're working on with AARP? Tell them Aging Together says hello.
I will tell them I don't know the name yet. We're that far behind. Every name I submitted, they don't like it. So.
Hey, but AARP, boy, they've got a lot of guys in white coats that know.
You know what? They've been very supportive. I have a checkered past, and they've been really supportive, and they allowed me to become their voice of downsizing, and they've really, they promote the heck out of it, and we get a lot of people that help.
Okay.
So very lucky.
Man, this was absolutely fantastic. I will follow up with everybody. We'll get you Matt's contact. We'll get the acronyms. We'll get a recording. We'll get a recording. We'll get a chat. We'll download the chat. If this is your first time on one of these calls, we do basically 2 of these a week. One's on sort of what's next in the future of aging. The other is on marketing masterminds for those folks that are in marketing. And whenever we can get a celebrity like Matt, we throw them in between. We've got a free online community that you can join in on. There's over 800 senior serving professionals that are a part of that. And for those consumers that are on the call, if you've got questions, we've got a huge community that can answer those questions. And you can reach out to me anytime. I got a link where you can just schedule right on my calendar. I love brainstorming with folks. And
Let me ask. I just see this last question.
Yeah,
Hey,
address that.
You're going to need the question is, they have grandparents' names on the savings bonds. Those are still good. You need a forensic accountant. Forensic accountant. They're not as hard as you think. Look them up on Google. Your accountant, whoever your accountant is, he'll know someone. It's probably worth it to go through it. Savings bonds, especially if it's stocks, you'll need death certificates and a will to show that you are the recipient of them.
Great. Thanks
Not
for that
as hard a
question.
problem as you think, but very good question.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Kim. And it looks like we've got through all the questions. This is great. And we got to see your son. He didn't jump back in. I figured he'd be back in there 2 or 3 times.
They get Slurpees. I told them they get Slurpees if they stay out of the room. So I got to go get them Slurpees now.
Oh, that's nice. Well, listen, the next time you're up here, the next time I'm down there, we got to get out on the paddle boards.
You're coming whitewater paddling with me, dude. It's literally in my calendar to invite you. Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks, Matt. And we really appreciate your
Steve, hey, we thank you for putting us all together, Steve. You keep a lot of us educated. Thank you, man.
Awesome. Okay. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.